If I'm gonna die or ever be a sacrifice, I want to make sure that my life made at least 5 million kids happy. All right, let's say worst thing comes to worst, I die a tragic death or some shit.
Last recording made by XXXTentacion before he passed away has been released, and it's really scary. As though he had foreseen it, he talks about dying young in the video. But that's not even the most absurd aspect about it. People are reconsidering how the late artist actually passed away after learning some disturbing facts. The prophecy that is now rocking the hip-hop scene is about to be discussed. X was sadly shot and killed at the age of 20 in what appeared to be a robbery in Deerfield Beach, Florida. It gets crazy from here though, since he uploaded a live video to Instagram just hours before he was killed, which some are now describing as eerily prophetic. Everyone got shivers when he discussed life, death, and legacy in the video. What did he say just before it happened? For example, it seems as though he anticipated it. Before we get into what he actually stated, let's take a moment to discuss X's true identity. It wasn't just any rapper trying to get notoriety. X was a movement, rather. In a style that the game had never seen before, he helped pioneer SoundCloud rap by fusing trap, punk, and emo. He explored suffering, love, depression, healing, and unadulterated human feeling in his songs, which went beyond simple flexing and dissing. Fans were able to relate to X's music for the broken, since it ranged from acoustic soul-searching to yelling fury in one tune. He was more vulnerable than most rappers. Furthermore, he was transforming the music of a whole generation, regardless of the controversies that surrounded him. This last message is striking people so strongly, because it sounds like a farewell that was never intended.
Like a lot of artists, like I would go from all of that, like from rock to rap to literally Japanese instrumentals, like different Japanese songs. Like I was completely and utterly mesmerized by music.
And that adaptability, the unadulterated emotional bond, this is what set X apart from all the other rappers in the game. Trust me, he could flex with the best of them, but he wasn't just out here rapping about riches, vehicles, and chains. But something deeper was accessed by X. He was addressing the anguish, worry, and despair that so many young people, particularly those living in the hood, were enduring in their quiet. And he wasn't afraid to express that darkness. However, it becomes really unsettling at this point. So let's return to that last tape. On June 18, 2018, the day X was killed, he made his Instagram Live debut. About a minute into the clip, he begins speaking to his audience in a tone that seems almost unearthly. His reflections on legacy, death, and life are profound. It sounds more like a farewell than a casual communication when you truly dig into it.
Let's say worst thing comes to worst, I die a tragic death or some and I'm not able to see out my dreams. I at least want to know that the kids perceived my message and were able to make something of themselves.
More than just music, X revealed something in this video. His goal, he explained, was to help at least 5 million children find the answers they were looking for or to make them happy. And this wasn't a publicity stunt or business gimmick. With this serene, almost uncanny spirit, as if he sensed an impending event, he uttered it. He wanted people to see the wider picture in spite of all the conflict, the arrests, and the criticism.
If I'm gonna die or ever be a sacrifice, I want to make sure that my life made at least 5 million kids happy.
The BMW i8 is elegant, futuristic, clean, and incredibly recognizable. X exits the dealership after finishing inspecting the motorcycles. At that point, he is blocked in by the Dodge Journey. Not that these guys were playing. Armed with masks and prepared to rob, Michael Boatwright and Trayvon Newsom leaped out. Things quickly went south, even though it initially appeared that they were only interested in the bag. A fight broke out because X wasn't going to simply give the money. Then there was a boom shots. X was struck several times and ended up sagging in the driver's seat. Taking the $50,000 in cash and the Louis Vuitton bag, the gunman thought that was the end of it and fled. However, they failed to see that the world was soon to be watching, in addition to the cameras and supporters. The story was pieced together using social media posts, eyewitness accounts, and video footage. In just a few hours, the internet took off. As the murder was being covered by the media, fans shared the footage of X's last live performance as if it were a farewell. The uncanny sensation, it simply became more powerful. The police officers moved quickly. The first person to be taken into custody within 2 days of the shooting was Dedrick Williams. The driver of the Dodge Journey was him, Michael Boatwright. Robert Allen and Trayvon Newsome were taken up shortly after. Text conversations, surveillance footage, and even direct messages on Instagram all backfired on them. When Robert Allen turned on the others and testified against them, he provided detectives with a detailed account of what transpired. It turns out that everything was a mess. Greedy, it cost them everything too. Newsome and Boatwright in particular. Who actually fired the shot? Prosecutors clarified the situation in court. This didn't work out. It wasn't retaliation. Envy and desperation were the driving forces behind this heist. Over some quick cash, these guys decided to take a young king out after noticing his brilliance. However, justice came down hard. In 2023, Boatwright, Newsome, and Williams, the 3 primary suspects, were found guilty and given life sentences without the chance of release. No agreements, no grace. Just a life sentence in prison for removing one of his generation's most important voices. Though his narrative, message, and last video are still relevant today, X's death wasn't in vain. We cannot overlook the fact that the final message X left behind not only sparked feelings, but also sparked a movement. More people than ever delved into his lyrics, music, and the unadulterated depth of his suffering. Tunes such as Sad People realized that X was more than simply an artist. He was a mirror which made Jocelyn Flores and hit harder than before, recalling the topics that this generation was hesitant to discuss: hope, loneliness, trauma, and mental health. His goal was to use his suffering to help lives. Additionally, his purpose continued, despite the fact that his voice
don't respect a lot of rappers. Real street don't respect rap niggas like that, unless you like that. I don't hope niggas think if you be a gangster, if you be a rapper, that turns you into a gangster just because you rapping gangster.
No one said it better than Boosie. Rappers are viewed by many people on the streets as easy targets rather than dangers. Ostentatious, wealthy, and frequently rather insecure. Far too many artists have lost their lives as a result of that perspective. So the 4 guys decided to take action when X was attempting to depart Riva Motorsports. A dark SUV blocked X's black BMW, according to security footage and court documents. The frightening events that followed were all captured on camera. Michael Boatwright and Trayvon Newsome, 2 disguised shooters, approached the vehicle. Boatwright, the primary gunman, struck X in the chest and neck with many bullets. His life was disappearing in an instant. The heartbreaking part is that X was in the car with his uncle, Leonard Kerr. Though he was able to get away, picture yourself witnessing your nephew's death. Trauma of such nature is permanent. The shooters dug into X's $50,000 Louis Vuitton bag after the rounds were fired. All it took was $50,000 to put a 20-year-old artist, who had just been discussing helping millions of children, to death. Even though he was sent to Broward Health North Hospital quickly, it was too late. The voice that had been urging healing, optimism, and strength only hours earlier was no longer there. Quiet, everlasting. This makes the entire situation much more difficult to accept. This didn't work out. Rap beef wasn't the topic. The industry didn't put it up that way for men went out in search of a fast come-up. They simply saw an opening and seized it. They had no intention of going for X. That was the absurdity of this. They not only defrauded him, but also the culture, the fans, and a generation who relied on X to stand up for them.
Point of view, right? Explain to me why someone would rob a high-profile person and expect to get away with it, and be prepared to kill the person in the process and expect to get away with it.
You just got some. When you in that lifestyle, it's whoever. A lick is a lick, and a rapper is a sweet lick. Cause a lot of think rappers ain't gangsters nowhere.
These men obviously didn't consider the repercussions. Local police aren't the only ones investigating when someone with X's level of notoriety and power is taken out. No, you're facing the entire weight of the legal system, including federal resources, reporters, and detectives who are out to get you. What followed was a massive case. The evidence quickly became clear, including witness testimony, phone records, and surveillance footage. These guys left a digital trail that stretched 4 kilometers despite their belief that they were slick. And you know what? The crew was broken with little difficulty. During the entire setup, Robert Allen, who was the lookout, ended up losing it. Allen entered a guilty plea in August 2022 to charges of armed robbery and second-degree murder. He pledged to testify against the other 3 in return, disclosing everything, even how they planned it, carried it out, and what they did immediately after. Allen was harsh in his testimony. He explained everything in court. The money was divided. When they killed X and grabbed it, Newsom, Williams, and Boatwright each received $15,000, as he did not fire the trigger. Allen took $5,000 and left. Take that into consideration. They estimated that X's life was worth $15,000 apiece.
You know, is natural life worth how much? So what was it, 30 G's? 40 G's?
15 G's each. 15,000.
Tony Yayo said it best when he remarked that these men sacrificed everything for a little $15,000 each. Think about that. For example, for that, they were willing to assassinate a superstar, and it's not even enough to purchase a good used car. That's crazy. And this is where X's parting message is even more impactful. A few hours prior to his passing, he was discussing his legacy, his desire to combat sadness, and his desire to assist children. He seemed to have a desire for his remarks to endure, since he realized his time was running out. It is understandable why the video is frequently described as creepy or prophetic. When X spoke about dying young, that's exactly what happened. He did more than just foresee it, though. People were deeply moved by his desire to inspire others, his affection for his fans, and his optimism. There was no fear in that last recording. The topic was impact. Beyond the news and the debate, it revealed X's true self, a young man looking for his own way to put things right. Realizing those were his final remarks in public, it's not the same, quite different. It altered the public's perception of him. It was all made even heavier by what transpired later. Law enforcement pounded the area. 'Cause it's not simply another case when someone like X is slain. The inquiry proceeded quickly. It gained widespread attention. And when the system is under that much strain, it functions with a distinct sense of urgency. Dedrick Devone Williams was arrested 2 days after X was killed, accused of robbery with a firearm, driving without a license, and first-degree murder. That's rapid. The following months saw the arrest of the last 3, Trayvon Newsom, Michael Boatwright, and Robert Allen. It was clear how seriously the state viewed this when all 4 were charged with
when the guys went out to the murder vehicle, the murder truck, to lie in wait for these people, they waited in the truck for like 8 minutes, 35 seconds. So she's giving her closing arguments in the trial, and she's telling them about this and how, you know, premeditation works, and you're sitting there and you're planning and you're waiting, you're thinking about this, you know you're going to do it, it's intentional.
Tony Yayo brought up one of the most difficult parts of the trial, The prosecutor's decision to have the jury sit in complete silence for 8 minutes and 35 seconds. Prior to killing X, those guys sat in the automobile for that amount of time, simply sitting and making plans. Imagine being there, experiencing each moment pass, and knowing that they had plenty of opportunity to leave, but chose not to. It made the point that everything was avoidable very clear. Their decision cost them lives. The prosecutors brought a ton of evidence. In addition to phone data connecting the suspects to the scene and even DNA on the masks left behind, they had the dealership surveillance footage demonstrating the robbery. The total came together flawlessly. Not a single clue, but a whole puzzle with all the pieces fitting together. The police could easily trace the trail these people essentially left. This was not something they could get away with. The line of defense, to shake things up, they did everything they could. They even brought up Drake and X's previous feud in an attempt to place the blame. However, the judge promptly dismissed that, stating that Drake was not linked to the crime by any.
You have his attorney.
He's been saying. He's saying that he killed XXXTentacion because of Drake. Because Drake.
No, listen. You have the attorney saying a lot of things, right? Me personally, I don't think that's Drake's style.
The entire defense tactic was deemed completely untrue by Whack 100, who is well versed in the music industry. It just seems like you're aiming for the stars when you have eyewitnesses, surveillance footage, and DNA evidence, all supporting the same story. Then, March 20th, 2023. The jury wasted little time. Williams, Newsom, and Boatwright were all convicted of first-degree murder and armed robbery. The verdict came quickly. No one accepted their justifications or the conspiracy allegations. The game was finished. And Judge Uzun didn't mince words when it came time for punishment on April 6th. 30 years and 2 life sentences without the possibility of release were handed down to 28-year-old Michael Boatwright for breaking probation. 24-year-old Trayvon Newsom and 26-year-old Dedrick Williams were also given life without parole. There is no escape. Take a life, especially one who meant so much to millions, and you pay the entire price. The legal system made...
Let's just say they're all 25 years old and they live to the age of 65. You know what I mean? They pass away at the age of 65. They're going to be in jail for 40 years. That $15,000 breaks down to $375 a year for the rest of their life.
When you do the arithmetic, it's devastating, and Tony Yayo explained it so well. Men are spending life behind bars for roughly $375 a year after throwing away their entire lives. Not even a respectable phone bill, that is. That is the cost they imposed on the life of a young legend. Robert Allen, who turned on the prosecution and cooperated, received a far shorter term. He was given a 7-year prison sentence on May 17, 2023. But there were only roughly 2 years remaining in his sentence because he had already spent almost 5 years. He was released in early October 2023. However, this independence has its own set of challenges.
Life is over, nigga. Nobody want to do that. A lot of motherfuckers rather be dead than do life.
Not only are these men incarcerated for life, but they also have to fear something even more terrible inside. X's admirers. Let's face it. XXXTentacion had a huge devoted fan base and was more than just another rapper. How about a few of those fans? They are both in the same prison system and are being watched closely. Just because you're incarcerated doesn't mean that kind of energy goes.
Think about a dude that grew up listening to XXXTentacion, now his killer is right here eating lunch next to you.
Being imprisoned and knowing that X has millions of fans, some of whom are undoubtedly also incarcerated, this is the brutal reality that these guys must deal with on a daily basis. Let's get back to why that last recording from X is still so potent. Because, in essence, they put targets on their backs for life. The trajectory of the Instagram live footage changed after his passing, almost like a farewell to his admirers. It was his last post, and no longer just a random one. It was as if he had a premonition of what was to happen. That film offered people a new perspective on him, and it completely transformed everything. It was about a young man attempting to help others through their sorrow, despite experiencing his own. It wasn't about the headlines or the scandals. Rather, it was about a man who actually cared and wanted to encourage a whole generation of young people to persevere. That deciding moment turned into a legacy rather than merely a video.
Hell of a loss at someone that I felt was nowhere near his height.
People thought he was scratching the surface, but he was only showing not even 5% of what he could really do.
Funeral. One of X's closest friends perfectly captured the magnitude of the sorrow. Even though he was only starting out, X was already beginning to realize the potential he had as a human being and an artist. He left behind that last recording. We were given an honest glimpse of his development as a young guy attempting to overcome adversity and utilize his position to share love and light. That Instagram video continues to have a powerful impact on people to this day. His final post, before passing away, has become legendary. As of February 2024, it had 32.5 million likes, making it the 11th most liked post on the entire platform. In addition, let's face it, X's influence persisted after his death. People continue to watch that video, find inspiration in his words, and connect with his message. His fusion of genres and emotional openness influenced hip-hop's overall course. His influence may be heard in the music of Kanye, Lil Nas X, Trippie Redd, Kendrick Lamar, Juice WRLD, and Billie Eilish, that now everywhere more rap style. 1. Of its pioneer.
I meant it at the time in the sense that I see them as very similar figures, in the sense that, like, when I think about Pac, he seemed like he was just so open and just feeling everything and just constantly just like releasing his emotions on you through his music and his interviews and whatever. And I got a lot of that same thing from X, that I felt like the fans were just overwhelmingly dedicated to him because he was just feeling shit. Like, he was so emotional and he was just so out there presenting himself to you.
Adam Tutu once claimed that X reminded him of Tupac. And the parallel becomes clear when you consider that statement closely. They were both too young, contentious, candid about suffering and hardship, and too quickly taken from us. But the heart that goes into X's ultimate message is what gives it its strength. X's genuine legacy is his unwavering devotion to his followers and his unwavering message of positivity, growth, and healing, even when he realized his time was running out. It was a young man's attempt to transform his personal suffering into something that would aid in the healing of others, not the drama or moral dilemmas. We saw a raw glimpse of his development in that final recording. It served as a reminder that beneath all of the news stories was a person merely attempting to make sense of his life. A person who, in his last moments, spoke of love rather than rage or fear. This is why his killer's life sentences struck a different chord. Losing a rapper wasn't the only thing that was affected. It was also the loss of a voice that truly aimed to inspire a whole generation. They attempted to stifle something optimistic, not merely take a life. This hope, however, never died. Millions of people are still motivated by X's final remarks and continue to find significance in his legacy. Not only is that last video a prophecy, but it also demonstrates the strength that comes from choosing love over hate and purpose over suffering. If this video resonated with you, be sure to check out more of the channel's content. There are many more important tales there. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you soon.